Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Rick. Kyle and I have another great episode of Only Football coming to you live here soon. We have got a crazy day in the NFL. The NFL never sleeps. Let's just be real, right? Derek Carr, Geno Smith, just a lot of rumors going around. So let's get to it, everybody. Let's get it.
Let's go.
Love it. Love it.
Man, we have been patiently waiting for a day like this, or maybe just me. But once the Super Bowl ends, it's like, okay, it's off-season time. And we make these stories and things to talk about. But then a day like this happens, and it's real. Like, it's really true.
Yeah.
We have officially gone into a new chapter where we're seeing players on new teams and big quarterbacks joining new ball clubs is always the sign that a new year is officially underway. And, man, I got to say, there was a couple of them that a couple moves that I totally get that make sense to me. And then there was some that I had some serious questions about, but I also kind of understood. I was in the middle on it. So let's get right into it. Let's
do it.
Let's start with the one that happened first, and that was Derek Carr to the Saints. They reached a deal that was worth, what, four years, $150 million?
Yeah, it was. It is. Sorry, that I was looking at the Geno Smith deal. 4 years, $150 million. $100 million of those dollars is guaranteed, and he's going to receive $60 million fully guaranteed. Or I'm sorry, it could be up to $100 million guaranteed. 60 is fully guaranteed at the signing, and another $10 million. Once he starts year 3 of the deal. So he's going to earn $60 million in his first 2 years of the deal here for Derek Carr. What a move. What a move.
Yeah, it's definitely a move. And if you saw the YouTube short, I posted up. I already got beef in the comments with some people. And,
I just saw that.
Why can't you just let me have this one, man? It's like I said, dude, in all honesty, this episode happened in like fucking December. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like nobody was linking Derek Carr to the Saints in December. But now that I said it on the video, I said it on the short, I was like, I called it. People are like, everybody knew that. I'm like, everybody, a lot of people.
I saw that. It's like everybody knew that. This is like the same people that are saying, of course, Aaron Rodgers is going to play football last year or some shit like that. Like, come on, stop. Nobody knew that.
No one
we
knows.
Just called it.
Yeah, it's like you can have an inkling, but this was before the official request happened. So I say all that to say, because it's funny for one, but then B is because I thought that this made sense all along. And if you watch that short, I said, when the Saints take the field in 23, they will have a tier 1 or fringe tier 2 quarterback under center. And I really believe in the coaching staff over there. I'm drawing a blank on the GM. I don't know why I've said his name, Mickey Loomis.
Yeah, Loomis.
He's a really great GM. Sean Payton is one of the best head coaches in the league, and he stayed with the Saints for a long time because of Mickey Loomis. Because obviously we found out that triangle, owner, GM, head coach is really important to Sean Payton. And that tells me that Mickey Loomis is a damn good GM. So I thought that they would get themselves a decent quarterback. No more what's his out of Florida State.
Jameis Winston.
Thank you. No more Jameis Winstons. No Marcus Mariotas. None of that. Let's get ourselves a real quarterback and go try to take a shot to win a division that right now is pretty damn weak with Tom Brady retiring. I think Carolina could be sneaky good with the defense and their new head coach. I think things might go, depending on what they do at quarterback, of course. But the point is right now, it would be hard for anyone to convince me that the Saints aren't the favorite to win the division because of this deal. And because of that, I like the deal. I do think that Derek Carr and Josh McDaniels, that whole thing is just something I don't understand, to be honest.
Yep.
Like, Derek Carr was considered a top 12 quarterback in the league. Now, top 12 you can win a Super Bowl with. And that is one of the things that it feels like, man, you do you know what it's like to not have a quarterback for 10 years? Like, you got a top 12 quarterback and you're just throwing him out to the curb. Like, maybe it's you, bro. Like, maybe you're the problem, you know? And then he kicks Derek Carr out. That is something that I still to this day don't understand what the fallout was.
I don't get it either.
It's hard, though, because I still think Derek Carr's got ball left in him, and I think he can play at, better than an average starting quarterback. And I think Josh McDaniels made kind of a bad move here, especially because there's no replacement in sight. That's not Jimmy Garoppolo. I would take Derek Carr over Jimmy Garoppolo. I would take Derek Carr over any free agent quarterback that's available right now. So I think it's a great move for the Saints, but I think it's a bad move for the Raiders. What's your thoughts on this?
I pretty much agree with everything you said, but before I go ahead, I want to just acknowledge people in the comments. We got Liam last month's trivia winner. So congrats, Liam. You got to get in touch with us. You got to get in touch with us, Liam. And then we got Jinja. He says, "What's up, Rick? Missed you, bud. Miss you too, Liam. Cheers to you."
Good to see you, brother.
He says, he goes, "No one knew that, so good call, Kyle." Yeah, exactly. That's true. And that's kind of what I wanted to start it off with. Nobody really called this, like you said, right? Like, we talked about it when we had kind of mentioned the news that, like, hey, Derek Carr is actually leaving the team, and he missed the last 4 games, or 3-4 games, something like that. And that's when you said, you were talking about how he would fit well with the Saints, and look what happened. This is perfect because now you get a quarterback. You're not relying on Andy Dalton to maybe go out there and have a good game, which he was pretty productive this season with the Saints. But I mean, you can't go with Andy Dalton as a franchise quarterback for the Saints anymore.
Agreed.
Josh McDaniels, this is the second franchise, right? The Denver Broncos were the first when he got rid of Cutler, and you get rid of Derek Carr. You get rid of 2 good quarterbacks. That's just not good, man. Like, you look like absolute dog shit doing that. So that just goes to show you that's the kind of coach he is.
It's like that skit with Cat Williams where he's like, if you keep walking around saying N-word ain't shit, he's like, you need to figure it out about what it is about your pussy that keeps attracting ain't shit N-word. And it's like, it's funny because it's like, it's Josh McDaniels. I think it might be you, bro. Like, I want to throw that out there.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, look, I get that he was able to get a second opportunity here to be a head coach for the Raiders, but starting it off the way you did, just like you started off with the Broncos, which did not go well after you were like, oh, hey, I can't cheat anymore. All right, I guess this is what we're doing. I don't think it's going to go well for the Raiders anymore. They have a really good set of players there, and to get rid of Derek Carr, who is like this hardworking, like if you took Russ Wilson and maybe took the cringe away a little bit, maybe lowered the cringe levels 50%, that's Derek Carr. He works hard, he's grateful, he loves his teammates, he is just a quarterback that you want to have as your franchise quarterback. And to go in there, get another shot at a head coaching job and then get rid of him, crazy move. Now, what I will say, and you mentioned it, the Saints made this move because Tom Brady retired and they want to get that crown for the NFC South. They want to be in the playoffs next year. And that's exactly what this move does. This move makes them immediate NFC South division winner contenders. You've got Tampa Bay, who's got to figure out their own quarterback situation. The Panthers, who are basically in rebuild, right? Like they just hired Frank Reich. They may be in contention for trading up to the Bears to try to get a quarterback. So that's a rebuilding team. And then who else is in the NFC South that I'm forgetting? The Bucks, the Atlanta Falcons, who just got rid of Mariota. They've just released him, possibly starting Ritter. again, another rebuilding franchise. Now, the Saints aren't necessarily like 100% there, but I would bet on the Saints to be the NFC South division winners there because you have Chris Olave, who had a great rookie year, Rashid Shaheed, who had another really good year. You still have Alvin Kamara, who knows what's going to happen there exactly. Michael Thomas, not sure what the situation is there, but you still got a good amount of offensive talent there for Derek Carr to basically make into a winning team. And don't get me wrong, I mean, they're not Devontae Adams, they're not Josh Jacobs, to that extent, right? Waller, who just got married. Congratulations to Darren Waller, just got married. Congrats.
He's got a hell of a story.
Yeah, he does. He does. And but I will say that these are really good. This is going to be a really good team with Derek Carr under center. Like I said, it's a pretty solid defense too in New Orleans. So again, they made this move because they wanted to be like, yeah, they had in their mind, we're going to win the division next year because our division is weak as shit and everyone else is rebuilding right now. Right as they got Derek Carr, everyone else is rebuilding, whether through the draft, free agency, whatever. I think they've got the best shot at winning the division next year. And, I mean, I'll call it now. Saints are going to be South division winners, NFC South division winners.
Wow. Already.
Calling it now. We are not even a week into March. And Rick solidified his opinion. Well, when everyone's gonna get hurt. Everyone's gonna get hurt after I said that.
Yeah, that's gonna be hilarious when like the Panthers come out of nowhere and they're like 10-3. It's
like oh shit.
Of course that would happen when I mentioned it.
Yeah.
So when Tampa Bay was, God, what were they? I think they were like 6-8 or something like that, and they were like in a win and get in situation. They just were, on the fringe of having a losing record. So maybe they were like 8-8, something like that, 7-9. I don't remember. Did Tampa get in with a losing record? I think they did.
I will double check that.
Yeah. But regardless, so Sean Payton was on Fox as an analyst, and they asked him, they said, do you think that teams, let's say that there was another division that had a really good record, but they didn't win their division, but Tampa gets in at barely a winning record?
8-9.
8-9. So just a losing record. So they asked him, do you think like you should be able to get in? And he said, every year, Mickey Loomis always preached, win your division. And then it was like, win your division, win your playoff games, win the Super Bowl. Those are like the big three things. So winning the division has always been the most important thing for Mickey Loomis, where some people are so focused on the Super Bowl. Mickey Loomis is like, okay, what's the alligator closest to the boat? We got to win our division. Okay, well, let's take a look at our division. It's pretty freaking weak. So they go and get Derek Carr. Now, a lot of people have had a little bit of pullback on this and have said the Saints don't have a lot of cap space, yada, yada, etc.
Yeah.
This is the whole point about getting a quarterback. It doesn't matter. If you have a quarterback that you actually believe in, like a tier 1, fringe tier 2 quarterback, mostly tier 1 quarterbacks I'm talking about, so let's just stay there. Then you can afford to have players on your team that are developing and players that are kind of just role players that, come off the bench, so to speak. So I do think that if you are going to have a roster that's very limited and your salary cap is very limited, then you almost have to go get a real quarterback. That is the only way to stay competitive. Like all these years Aaron Rodgers had his team, they lost the playoff games, but nobody said the Packers weren't competitive. They were always a team that was a lot of times in the last 3 years playing a home game in the playoffs, which is the first goal. And they didn't have like people on that roster that you'd be like, damn, besides Devontae Adams. But besides that, I mean, it's just kind of a lot of dudes that are going to, move around to a lot of different homes. But they can do that. Patrick Mahomes, right? We talked about it. They got 6 players on their offense that don't even make altogether what Tyreek Hill made in 1 year. And they just won the Super Bowl. So that's the whole idea is if you can get yourself a really good quarterback, you can compensate for that other shit, the not having money, and you can't go get those really fancy free agents and stuff like that. But you got yourself the bus driver, and that's the most important thing. Derek Carr being a Saint kind of saves the organization, and at least I think for Mickey Loomis does that first goal of winning the division. I totally agree with you about the Saints winning the division, but I do want to see I'm going to wait a little bit just to see what Carolina does at quarterback. I'm not really worried about Atlanta, even though they were surprisingly kind of good. But this is turning into our division prediction. So let's just
let's save that for later. Yeah. No, for sure. And I, you said Derek Carr was a fringe tier 2, right around there. Ginger's saying no. He thinks he's a tier 3 at best. Tier 1 being Mahomes, Burrow, Hurts, and Allen. Tier 2 being Lawrence, Lamar, and Herbert. Derek Carr fits in that 3. What I will say, and I'm not, I like and I don't like ranking quarterbacks on tiers, because we all know who the top ones are. Mahomes, like Ginger said, Mahomes, Burrow, Hurts, and Allen. But then once you get to tier 2, then you're like, okay, well, what is exactly a tier 2, right? What I will say for the Saints,
Aaron Rodgers isn't tier 1.
Well, is he gonna play football? I don't know, right? What if he's got to be a quarterback first to be in the tiers?
That is true.
What I will say is the Saints just got better at quarterback over the last couple seasons. When you are talking about the last year of Drew Brees' career, and then you go into Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston, and then you go into Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, and Andy Dalton. That's 3 years of subpar quarterback play. You automatically elevate your quarterback position with Derek Carr. That's just facts. That is just 100% facts. So I don't really, I personally don't really care about putting Derek Carr in tier 2, tier 3, whatever it is. I just know that if I'm a Saints fan, I know we got better. The biggest question here, and you mentioned it, right? What is the cap going to look like for the Saints? With the signing of Carr, Jameis Winston is gone. Now, it depends, right? Because the Saints are $50 million over the cap. If they designate Jameis's release after a June 1st transaction, they would save about $13 million. So now you're at $37 million over the cap. I think that's doable, right? Maybe you release Michael Thomas, whatever the deal might be, because you got Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, who both had really good seasons. Chris Olave, right, being the better one wide receiver wise, but now you're able to kind of make some moves. So this kind of just brings up the question, though. Jameis Winston, is there a market for him? Because I think he falls, at least in my opinion, I think he falls in that similar Mariota type of quarterback market where he doesn't really have a market, but there might be a team who, like the Atlanta Falcons last year, kind of need that bridge quarterback in order to be somewhat competitive, So does Jameis Winston go anywhere?
Yeah, I think so. I think Atlanta is actually an interesting spot, because he would be replacing the number 2 overall pick, and he was the number 1 overall pick in that same year. Mm-hmm. So maybe they get a little bit better, the difference between 1 and 2, but nothing huge. But yeah, I think there's fans that are man, why did we even, when you look back on it, it's why did we even get Andy Dalton? Why did we even get Jameis Winston or think that Taysom Hill could be?
Yeah.
You also have to remember that quarterbacks don't grow on trees, and it's the spoiled organizations like the Broncos with Manning, probably the Colts with Peyton Manning as well. When you get used to having a guy there, you don't wake up and even after a certain amount of years, you just get used to it. It's you don't thank God every time you take a breath, but if you had to do 50 push-ups before every breath, you probably would be hey, can I, you know what I mean? We get so used to, or, normalize things that are actually unique and hard to do. Mm-hmm. So especially if you think about those years, who could have the Saints gotten? You know what I mean? You think about it, it's who was out there, who is available? Okay, no one. Yeah. So it's really hard. But if you go into the Broncos had 10 quarterbacks in the span of Peyton Manning till now, like 10.
Yeah.
10. I mean,
10 experiments.
At some point, it's not the market, it's you. You know what I mean? If you haven't drafted and developed, and there's been nobody on the, no free agents. I mean, in a span of 10 years or 5 years, usually you can find one. And that's what's really cool about what the Saints are doing with Derek Carr is they didn't play this game for longer than they had to. They had to go and get Andy Dalton. It wasn't great, but they had to do it because it was the best available. They went with Jameis Winston because he threw 40 touchdown passes as a Buck, and they played in that division. They played him twice. They knew that Jameis Winston could ball, and they believed in him. Whatever. But eventually, you know what I mean? But eventually it's like, hey, let's stop, dicking around because now there's a guy available that's better than, the best free agent that's been available in the last, since Tom Brady was a free agent? So let's go get that guy. And they did it. Not the Panthers, not the Jets, not any of these other teams. It was New Orleans that made this move, and they deserve a lot of credit. And you could think, why didn't the Jets, get more aggressive? They're a quarterback away. You talk about a team that get, I don't think they're thinking about Aaron Rodgers. I hope not.
They're not out on him. That's what I keep hearing. And that was the other question. The Saints didn't wait until Aaron Rodgers made his fucking decision. They were like, this guy is doing his thing right now, and he is deciding. He is in the process of deciding whether or not he's going to come back or not to the Packers or to football in general. We're not going to wait. We need somebody right now, and they signed Derek Carr. They didn't wait for that domino to fall, and that's something that a lot of the NFL analysts are saying. Oh, once Aaron Rodgers domino falls, then everyone else, we're going to get a clearer picture on the quarterback. The Saints said, fuck that. We need a quarterback. We're not waiting on this guy because he doesn't make our team like all of a sudden Super Bowl contenders, although maybe you can make an argument for it. We're going to go get somebody that is playing the game very well. And to be fair, he did have a down season last year, which is almost a little crazy as to why they signed him. But regardless, again, all the points that I made about Derek Carr earlier, right? He's a good teammate. He cares about football. He's passionate. He cares about his teammates. All that stuff, right? Like, that's who they're going for. So I'm kind of happy that they didn't wait for the Aaron Rodgers domino to fall in order to make a move. Again, I think this is a good move because they see that their division is weak. There's a point to attack, and that point is now. That time is now to attack. So that's what they did. And Ginger here saying, you're preaching to the choir. Best Colts fans have had 3 years of very bad quarterback play as well. I still would not like to take Derek Carr. I think he is mediocre. Comparable to the last few quarterbacks you've had, Ginger, if I were a Colts fan, I would 100% take Derek Carr.
Well, the last thing I'll say about it, too, is that it's very possible that Derek Carr's down year, so to speak, was actually from all the newness. Like Devontae Adams got there, and they haven't played together since college. And, you put this thing on paper, and it's supposed to just work, but it doesn't. It takes time, and there's a lot of kinks that need to be figured out. And the thing is I don't think Josh McDaniels made Derek Carr a better quarterback. So Derek Carr also got kicked. So think about it from Carr's position. It's like, you made me a worse quarterback, and then you kicked me out the door. Okay? And then on top of that, the Saints thing is amazing because, like you said, they didn't wait for the Aaron Rodgers domino to fall, which means they wanted Derek Carr. Which, when a guy gets kicked out of an organization the way he did, just, ostracized, just banned, there's nothing better than an organization that's like, you're not our second choice. You are our first choice, and we want to take you in. Because once Aaron Rodgers last year said, I'm staying in Green Bay, it was only 2 hours later that Russell Wilson was traded to the Denver Broncos. And everybody knew that the Denver Broncos were waiting for that domino to fall because if Rodgers was going to test free agency, they were going to make a drastic move towards him. And that always lingered over Russ, Even in the press conferences, they brought the shit up. So, I mean, it's really cool for Derek Carr because of the way he got kicked out and the way he was not wanted to have an organization that was saying, bro, you're our first choice. You're the guy that we want, and we don't care about Aaron Rodgers and all the other draft and And I think that's exactly what Derek Carr needed for his family, for his ego, his self-esteem, a little bit of dignity back.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to go out there and have a really good year.
Yeah, and Ginger disagrees. He says he thinks we're hyping Carr up a little too much, and he thinks that he's not gonna. I don't think Carr has a good season.
I think he has twice a year for like the last 7 years being a Bronco fan. So it's like,
yeah, me personally, I think he'll have a good season, better than this year for sure, because this is kind of what his stats were, right? 3,500 passing yards, the third lowest mark of his 9-year career, 24 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. That's the most in a single season. It was a 14, and I think that was either last year or the year before. And a 60.8% completion percentage, which is a career low. Now, with the newness, like you mentioned with Devontae Adams, that had to do a little bit. That definitely had an effect on his stats. I think so, because you can look at several other players, coaches, because, I mean, and this, Nathaniel Hackett and Russ Wilson. That was a down year from a guy like Russ Wilson, who everyone was like, hey, why isn't he MVP? Oh, maybe because of this. But Nathaniel Hackett was not necessarily the coach for him. So now, obviously, we turn the page. It's a different story. But I think it's going to be new, but I think he's a lot better this upcoming season than last year. And that's kind of where I'll wrap it up, unless you got something else, Kyle, for Derek Carr and the Saints.
No, that's all I got. I totally agree with you, though. Definitely, I see him having a better year this year than he had last year. No doubt. Okay,
gotcha. All right, well, we're going to move on to the next segment, but before we do, we've got a little QR code here at the top, and I'm gonna make sure to put in the link in the comments. But if you would love to support us, that would be great. Here at Only Football, Kyle and I are trying to raise money to go to the Super Bowl. I know it seems insane, but we've got about a year to do it. If you can help us with the little QR code with a little bit of a donation up there, it'll take you to our link tree to where you can donate. All of our links, huh?
That'd just be so crazy. You and I at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like, I would love to go to the game, but to even go to just, like, Las Vegas and be around the stadium during that, like, the amount of content we can make would be ridiculous. So if you guys wouldn't mind, supporting us up here with the little QR code, and I'm going to put the link here in a bit in the comments so you guys can check us out and donate if you guys would like to support us. We appreciate all the comments, all the support that you guys bring us. But yeah, we got that up there at the top left of the screen for you guys. All right, next segment. Geno Smith and the Seahawks have reached a new deal, and that deal is for 3 years, $105 million contract. This deal includes $52 million in the first year, and this is Geno Smith, who was the NFL's Comeback Player of the Year. So Seattle's doing right by him. He's doing right by Seattle in a way, because he proved that them keeping him in Seattle, he did a lot of good things there, right? Just to note a few. He led the league in completion percentage at almost 70%, finished 6th in total QBR, and finished 4th in touchdown passes with 30, and led them to basically an unexpected playoff game, right? Like let's be real. Totally unexpected. Yeah, let's be real, right? So what do you think of this deal? Ginger, I see your comment, and I'll make sure to get it done. But Kyle, what do you think of this deal for Geno Smith and the Seahawks?
I think I'm torn. I'm really torn, because part of me thinks, if a guy goes out and, exceeds all the expectations and leads the team to the playoffs, especially a transition year, that he deserves to be paid. But then there's another part of me that thinks, is Geno, does it feel like, for a Seahawks fan, I'm trying to think, like, if I were a Seahawks fan, does it feel a little bit like this is settling? Like, okay, this is good enough. Or is Geno Smith somebody that you're like, yeah, we could totally win a Super Bowl with this guy? And that's what I'm torn about. So what do you think? Like, do you think Geno, this is a good move?
I have to agree with you. It does seem a little bit like settling. But what I will say about that is they're settling for a guy that did really well this year for them, that got them to the playoffs. And in a sense, you do have to pay for that. But also, I guess when you're kind of looking at the future, because you look at, the emergence of Kenneth Walker, you still have DK Metcalf, who's somewhat, I don't want to say somewhat young, but he's still young, right? Like, he's still going to dominate for a few years in his career. Is it necessarily settling? Yes, but they also have the 4th pick, right? So 3 years, 3 years, $105 million in this quarterback market. I think it's a great deal for the Seahawks. Geno gets his money and gets to stay in Seattle, and the Seahawks have an opportunity to trade up or stay at 4 or 5, whatever the pick is, and pick up a not CJ Stroud, but a Bright, or maybe a CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, a Will Levis, somebody that they think, or maybe another quarterback. I think it's probably those top 4 though, or maybe another quarterback though, if they can pick up, get him under Geno, have Geno in a sense teach him, depending on Geno's demeanor, because he is kind of an asshole. But I think it's a good move for both sides, because you don't pay that much money for this quarterback. He got you to the playoffs. He had a good season, and you're still in a great position in the draft to draft the quarterback. So settling a little bit, but it's only 3 years, and you still can get a quarterback. And you could pretty much probably dump his salary in year 2 or 3 if, this quarterback that you draft, which I'm suspecting Seattle will do, turns out to be a good one.
Yeah, and, I do think it works because the commitment is only 3 years. So it's not like they're getting in bed with Geno for, 7 years. And it's
exactly.
Like,
it's not a Deshaun Watson contract, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, God. And that contract's really just destroyed the whole market, to be honest.
Yeah.
But this is probably an honest conversation with Geno Smith. They said probably something along the lines is, you're a good quarterback, but the only way it works is if we have, money to rebuild the defense, to, get a couple more weapons. But if we have to pay you, the whole bag, then all of a sudden it's not really worth it. So this contract, and for Geno Smith, who has been on a backup salary since 2010? No, 2012? Whatever. It's been a long time.
13, I thought. 13? Yeah,
Probably,
it's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a very long time. And who drafted him again? It was someone.
It was the Jets. The Jets. Yeah, second round.
So, yeah, I mean, you go from making backup money to $100 million. You know what I mean? It's almost like, this probably is going to be his last contract in the NFL.
Yes.
And it's almost kind of like the trophy at the end for staying the course and staying consistent. You stayed in, you didn't get discouraged, you accepted the role of a backup, and then when it was your time, 3 years before you were going to retire, you got $100 million. Hard work pays off. I think it's a great story. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's pretty cool that the Seahawks are going to reward him for, the dedication and work it took, because it's not easy to run a franchise or to take over for Russell Wilson when, the club, how everything got crazy when he left. So, I mean, it was a lot of stuff to juggle, and he handled it like a true professional. Yeah. And I just wonder, though, if you're a Seahawks fan, do you feel that, and this is the only pullback I have, is if you see this contract on your feed, do you think to yourself, okay, so we're not going to win a Super Bowl for the next 3 years? Because I know for a fact that there are plentiful Seahawks fans that have said, we already reached our ceiling, and Geno, the stats are good, but a lot of things are a little overinflated. They weren't that great. Like they, went toe-to-toe with Detroit when Detroit was giving up 45 points a game and, won that game. And there's just a lot of games. They never could beat San Francisco. They started I think they started, was it 2-1? And they never won more than 3 games in a row. So they never got on a real winning streak, but the record was improving. And then they had I would say the highest point the mountain peak for Seattle this year was when they beat the Giants at home. That was like the Giants. I think that was their first loss in Week 7.
I don't know. I think that game one, that Monday night against the Broncos, when the hype was at its highest. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, if we look at the whole season, yes, that really wasn't a big win. But week 1 in the NFL, nobody thought that was going to happen. So I would say that was probably cool, but the Giants for sure.
The only thing I would say about that is all of the Seahawks fans that I was sitting around, they saw how passionate I was. And actually, when the field goal was missed, they all actually felt bad for me. They were like, patting me on the back and stuff. And there were some drunk assholes, but the guys I was sitting around were really cool because I was respectful, so they were respectful, and the exchange was similar to something along the lines of, if we did a rematch, you know what I mean? It would it was how many
like an
things
immediate
had to go wrong for us to win this game. You guys fumbled on the 1 yard line twice. And then you opt to kick a 70-yard field goal to win the game. Like, what the hell is your coach doing? Well, they all kind of thought almost like it was a fluke. There was no reasonable Seahawk fans that were like, we just won that game because we were the better team today. It was a lot like the Broncos fucking blew it and we won. But when the Giants game happened, it was we dominated all phases of the game and we beat a team that's 6-0. Who knows what the feeling is for this team? So that's the only reason I would pick that game over that one. But I would say
for sure,
pure emotion, week 1 by far.
By far.
Seattle is we don't care if we go 1-16 as long as we win week 1. And the feeling was mutual. So, it was a really emotional game. But what I was trying to say is, do you think if you're a Seahawks fan and you see this on your newsfeed, 3 years, do you feel like we are going to have a very similar season to the one we had this year, next year, and the year after that? And this is who we're going to be. We're going to be competitive. We're going to be a team you have to game plan for. When we play at home, we're going to be tough and we can upset really good teams. But when it comes time, when push comes to shove, and there's a real playoff game, and a team like San Fran comes into town, or the Eagles with Jalen Hurts, can we hold the jockstrap with those teams? And if the answer is no, then what are we really doing? Because at least if you have a shitty quarterback, you can draft a really good one.
So with that being said, if I'm a Seahawks fan and I'm looking at this deal, and again, knowing what spot I'm in the draft, kind of like what Eric S. said, if they can rebuild that defense, which, by the way, cheers, Eric S. Thank you for stopping by on the stream. I am pretty happy. Fisheye bowl or whatever. I'm pretty happy with this, that we went to the playoffs last year. We're bringing back that same quarterback. None of our other offensive guys are necessarily going away. When the Seahawks lost, oh my God, their running back. Remember, he had neck surgeries and it just was not working. What was his name? Carson.
Oh, was it? Oh,
yeah, Chris Carson. I was like, shit. If I'm a Seahawks fan, I'm like, shit. Well, there goes our running back, and our quarterback just got shipped away. And then Geno Smith has the year he has. Kenneth Walker emerges. We still have DK, and like Eric said, if we can rebuild the defense, now this team becomes pretty damn good, especially if we draft a quarterback now. And for these next 3 years, if we stay competitive and these offensive guys develop in those 3 years, and our quarterback that we picked up this year in the draft now is our starter, Geno, thank you. We gave you maybe $105 million for 3 years of competitive football in Seattle, and you were able to bridge that gap between hopeful huge success Super Bowl wise, right? Then I'm looking at this like this was a good move to give a comeback player, a guy who set a bunch of records, and beat a couple of Russell Wilson's records, by the way. I'm liking this move. Now again, this is very, very hopeful wishing, right? Like what is that? Wishful thinking, right?
Yeah.
If all these things, fall into line, then this is a great deal. If Geno Smith comes out next year and has the worst year of his career, right? We're talking highs and lows here. Then I'm looking at this like, you gave this fucking, like, throw in the rookie, right? All of a sudden you're doing that. So I looking at this in terms of what I just said, in the hopeful view, this is a good deal. If everything goes to shit, if Kenneth Walker doesn't do the same things next year as he did this year, if DK Metcalf gets hurt and he's not the same player anymore, if we can't build that defense, if anything else happens, the quarterback we pick isn't the guy, then it's kind of like, oh shit, we are back to just being mediocre. The Seahawks. Yeah, mediocre. Real quick before we move on, cheers to Steve. Steve, thanks for joining us. He said he would have chucked 10-day-old sardines at you, just saying. And and we've got Kalengo 27. Cheers. Thanks for joining us. But yeah,
new people in here.
Yeah, some new people. Appreciate that. Again, there's our link right up here, our QR code, and the link in the comments if you guys would love to support us to get to Super Bowl LV3, something like that.
I don't know.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with the Seahawks. And again, if I'm a Seahawks fan, that's kind of the way I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting too to see Pete Carroll, because I feel like Pete Carroll's another guy where Pete Carroll is like the Geno Smith of head coaches, potentially. Like it's Pete Carroll. A lot of people have a lot of problems with Pete Carroll's coaching decisions, like situationally. And I learned that from just watching press conferences live on Twitter and seeing all their fans react. But here's the thing, like, Pete Carroll's either mediocre or he's really, really good, and he's the only thing holding it all together.
Yeah. Thank you, Ginger, by the way. Thank you.
Ginge. Shout out, Ginger. So, yeah, man, it's all interesting. It's all kind of TBD, but I mean, I'm not surprised. You know, like I after what he did last year, this just reminds me of Tannehill. This is what Tannehill did in Tennessee, right? Like, I can't see anything different besides, I think Tannehill, I don't know his first year with the Titans. I think they went to the playoffs, but I don't know if they went to the AFC Championship. I think that happened later.
Check. But I'll double check.
Yeah, so I do think now here's a real weird question I'm going to ask, not just you, but anybody in the comments, feel free to answer. How old is Geno Smith? 33?
32, I believe.
32. Can a 32-year-old quarterback at this stage of his career get better? Right? That is a really interesting question. When we talk about quarterbacks progressing, getting better, usually we're talking about rookies on a rookie contract, like Josh Allen taking that year 3 jump. But here we have a quarterback that hasn't actually fully started a season in so long. I mean, it's been so long, it almost felt like it was his 30-year-old rookie out there that was playing for the first time in a long time. Is it possible he could make a year 2 jump from just being under center for that whole season last year? Weird question, right?
And it's a good question to ask, especially for Geno, because you mentioned Ryan Tannehill. He was able to do it, and that was let me see, I'm seeing it here. He was drafted by Miami in 2012. 2019, that's year 7 technically for Tannehill, or 8, and he's and that he was 31. He was 31 when he went to Tennessee in 2019. So can he do it? Maybe. I mean, we didn't think Tannehill could do it. We just thought Tennessee wasn't going to be good for a while because they brought Tannehill. Tannehill proved them wrong. Now, the thing I will say, Tannehill sustained it. He sustained that. I don't want to say he was great, but he's good enough to, with the addition of Derrick Henry too, and that defense, who has been pretty damn good. He sustained it, and they were good. Now, can Geno do it? Again, maybe, because he does have weapons in DK and in Kenneth Walker. But again, just like Eric said in the chat, they need to bolster up that defense, right? And they need Geno to, when it turns to the passing game, he needs to be good, at least good, because they are probably going to be a very run-heavy team, because Pete Carroll has done that his entire career and has found some pretty damn good success. So can he do it? Sure. Will he do it? that's kind of just up for grabs at this point, right?
Yeah, and that's another great point is that being a run first offense, they're not asking him to do that much. They just, hey, don't make mistakes. And a really good way to measure is QBR and turnover worthy plays, which I don't have it in front of me, but I bet you Geno Smith had very few turnover worthy plays. And if you're a run first offense that is just looking for a guy to not just not make mistakes, right? Like we said that about Brock Purdy, where like all he has to do is not F it up. He's got so many weapons. But Geno Smith, I want to give him a little more credit because he can make a play when he needs to. He can roll out of pressure.
Yeah.
He can use his feet. He had really good vision last year, especially under pressure to stay in the pocket and find guys that are open. And I mean, he looked like a really good quarterback, but I do think that it favors him being in a run-first offense because he can make that play when he has to, but they're not asking him to do that every single down, right?
Yeah,
and that was kind of some of the pullback with Russell Wilson. He's like, let me cook. And Pete's like, we run here. Like, we don't, you know what I mean? It's like that meme that's like, someone's on a rant and he's like, sir, this is Applebee's.
So you're at an Applebee's. What are you going to do here?
Let me cook. It's like, sir, we run here.
We have the meats. We don't do that.
So, yeah. So, this is another little piece of the puzzle that does make it seem like a good deal, right? There's a pro and cons section. This is a pro that they're a run-first offense. They're not asking to do that much. And it's only 3 years, man. And who knows, man, the fine print of those contracts are so crazy. I might say, there might be incentives. There might be a year or two option, like if he has a bad first year going into 24, they can opt out of it. Like, it might not be as we look at these contracts as fans and we're just like, he's going to be a Seahawk for the next 3 years. How do you feel about it? But there's so many outs written in the fine print that you're not really committing. You're just like, if he's really good, then he's committed. But if he sucks, we have an out. Especially because the guaranteed was, I forgot what the guaranteed was.
Guaranteed, I don't know what the guaranteed is. I know that it includes $52 million in the first year. So in a sense, I guess you can say that's guaranteed. I don't remember if any of that money was in fact guaranteed though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, either way, I do think after talking through it with you, because I really didn't know when I started.
Yeah.
I think it's a good deal. It's not a sexy deal, right? They didn't sign Aaron Rodgers or some, there were times in the offseason where they were saying Tom Brady was going to go to Seattle. I'm like, no, he wouldn't.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. It's like, you notice that he's on the beach in Florida. Like, he's going to San Francisco. He's going to LA maybe.
We live in Washington, and I will say, like, I enjoy it. The scenery is great. It's unmatched in any of the Midwest parts that I lived in. Ever. Yeah, some of the best trails, nature. God, the cloudiness I can go without. I need some goddamn sunshine. But yes,
sometimes I'm just sad and I don't know why. And I'm like,
I was like, geez,
in 9 days.
Cool little stat about Geno Smith. Maybe not that cool, but he became the first quarterback since Rich Gannon in 1999 to be selected to his first Pro Bowl in year 10 or later of his career. So
that is a really cool stat.
Yeah, that's a cool little stat. We'll go to Steve's comment and then we will move on. I don't think he gets much better, but I think he can be stable at what he did last season under the right coaching. I think Pete Carroll's the right coach for that. What hurt him in the past was his immaturity and that affected his leadership with the team. I can 100% buy that. And like I said earlier, he was kind of an asshole. He has matured, obviously, over the years, being a backup, right? No longer the starter for the Jets. He got into a fight at one point. I forget if it was with the Jets or what other team it was.
He got his jaw broken in the locker room.
Charity
event that one of the defensive players asked him to go do, and he bought his ticket for him to fly Geno to it. And then Geno didn't go on the flight.
And didn't pay him back.
And he didn't pay him back, so he punched him in the jaw. And it's funny, we're like, he was a kind of an asshole when he was younger, and it's like, That's the only thing I know about, and people make mistakes. It's not like imagine you make one mistake like that and you punch in the jaw, and everyone's like, he was an asshole when he was
To be fair, I heard he was an asshole throughout his entire career up until he came to Seattle. Okay. Before, and maybe like a little bit into Seattle, but other than that, he was kind of an asshole.
Hanging out with Russ.
Hanging out with Russ, really he's like, Jesus Christ. Let's move on to the next thing. So the Chiefs are also in the news. They have cut Frank Clark, and they are not tagging, Orlando Brown. So the Kansas City Chiefs will not use their franchise tag on left tackle Orlando Brown. So it's going to it's a move that's basically leaving Brown to be a free agent. They could not come to an agreement on a long-term contract. He played this past season on the franchise tag, earning about $16.5 million. But so the Chiefs and Brown can still come to terms, and they have until March 13th to do so. So in about 7 days. Do you think they come to an agreement at all, Orlando Brown and the Chiefs?
This is tough, man, because the Chiefs had such a great O-line, and I do think it's one of the more slept-on offensive lines in the NFL. Look at the numbers. They had like two guys that had, I think, the number 1 and number 2 best pass block win rate throwing, and they had one guy that was like the best run block win rate. So they have a really beefy offensive line, and I will caution the Chiefs on getting rid of Orlando Brown because they have those receivers, okay, and they have those running backs. And I understand that the whole thing is Patrick Mahomes is so great you don't need anything, but there's an exception to that. He has to have an offensive line. Because if you're going to ask Patrick Mahomes to run out of the pocket and extend the play and do something special that isn't drawn up, then you have to give him time, right? If he has no time, then that special shit, I understand once in a while he could probably still make a move, but it's not a good recipe for long-term success. So right now, you got rid of Tyreek Hill. You're not paying anybody on offense. I mean, Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes are the only dudes that probably drive better than a Toyota. You know what I mean? Probably also driving Camrys to work, maybe BMWs. I don't want to underplay them, but only Mahomes and Kelce are driving Bentleys and Royces. You know what I mean? It's like, so I think don't get greedy. Don't get greedy. Like it's almost like you're playing Jenga. And you're like, Tyreek Hill, the tower still stands.
Yeah. Orlando Brown.
This guy. And it's like, how many more can we pull? And it's like, you're just pulling one at a time, it seems like. Orlando Brown, don't pull it.
And we saw what that looked like in their second Super Bowl against the Bucks. Yes. He was running all over the place. He made some ridiculous throws. Don't get me wrong. There's one where he was falling on the ground and threw it sideways while still in the air. But what do you? Yeah, and do you want Patrick Mahomes to do that throughout the rest of his career? No, you don't. So, I agree. Why are you being stingy on an offensive line for your $500 million quarterback when that should be one of the priorities? When you see that yes, he is able to make offensive weapons good, right? Who scored in the Super Bowl? Pacheco, Sky Moore, Kelce, Kadarius Toney. All these guys, outside of Kelce, are either rookies or first, or they're new to the team, and he was able to get them all to score on the team. So don't be stingy on the offensive line, because the offensive line is protecting your $500 million quarterback who is making other guys, cheap guys on your team, really good at football.
Exactly. Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself, and we'll be following that too. Because what if Andy Reid though has a scouting thing going on right now, and they're like, hey, there's this guy that plays. What is he? Left tackle. What if they're like got their eyes on a left tackle that because sometimes there's so many players that draft skill positions in the first round. Yes. So it's like the best cornerback's available at 15. We're going to get him. We're going to go with that guy. All the quarterbacks are going to go in the first, 7 picks probably, maybe down to 15. But then it gets to 32. And what if like the second or third best left tackle on the board is there? And the Chiefs' whole thing is we could draft this guy and he may not be perfect, but we are very confident that he will be an effective player that might even have the ceiling as Orlando Brown. And we can get him on a rookie deal and save that money to address something else. Like
for sure.
The draft does kind of weigh in a little bit here because those are new players coming on the team. So how many days did you said they had? They have 7 days?
Yeah, they have until the 13th to work out any terms.
That's the thing. They don't have the luxury of waiting until the draft. So they're going to have to make a decision here. And I'll just assume that if they go with the decision to release Orlando Brown, then they got their eyes on the draft. I would have to believe that.
Yeah, and another thing with that too is getting basically cutting Frank Clark, a guy who was one of the big reasons that defense was pretty good. Chris Jones obviously being the other one, and not pretty good in terms of like the entire NFL, but pretty good for the Chiefs, you know what I mean? Like those two guys, Frank Clark and Chris Jones, were basically the only guys on defense who made that defense any good. I guess that's what we'll say. He's
facts.
Huh?
That's facts.
That is facts. Yeah.
It was a bad defense.
Yeah, it was a bad defense. And Frank Clark is a guy who's gone to the Pro Bowl each of the past 4 seasons, but they were unable to find common ground with the Chiefs. They had a bunch of conversations during the combine, but now Frank Clark is going to be released is going to be cut by the Kansas City Chiefs. 29 years old. Frank Clark, great stat on Frank Clark. He ranks 3rd in the NFL in career sacks in the postseason. So he is a monster in the postseason with, 3rd overall in sacks. So Frank Clark being released or being cut. I'm sorry, I always mix up the two. Does Frank Clark at 29 years old, 3rd all-time in postseason sacks, where does he go, and does he get like a big contract, or does he get something like a Bobby Wagner type of contract last year?
I would say Bobby Wagner. That might be let me see.
5-year 50?
Let me see really quick.
Yeah.
Because let's see.
And it's different because he
top paid.
What's that?
I'm trying to see what the top paid defensive end is making right now.
Yeah, because I mean he's almost 30, but he's also defensive end, which is a prime position. Well, so is he going to get big money like that?
I mean, this is just kind of the way I think the NFL goes when you have Patrick Mahomes, and I hate to keep making it about him, but the thing is Chris Jones up the middle, right? That's their leader on defense, and then there's some just role players around him. But when a guy, it's the same thing with Steve. It's the same thing with the Giants. Like you draft a guy, he does a really good job, and then before you have to give him a bag, you let him go, and then you do it again.
All running backs ever.
And it sounds like you're just kind of using all these players, but it's business, and there's a salary cap. And look, defensive ends when they get to 30 get hurt. It's just a thing. Like Von Miller,
Khalil Mack,
an amazing player, and then he still is when he's on the field, but he gets hurt. And your bodies change, and anybody that studies the game knows that if these edge rushers, look at Randy Gregory too. I mean, the guy.
Oh yeah.
People that are more prone to getting hurt, and then that goes way up. That amplifies with age. So, I just think it's not worth paying somebody a lot of money unless it's like a guy that you have to have. Like, I mean, even look at the best people at the position right now. You think of Nick Bosa. You think of Joey Bosa. You think of T.J. Watt.
T.J. Watt, yep.
How old are these guys? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not 30. And this is like something that has changed because it used to be, DeMarcus Ware, and I feel like pass rushers used to age better
Mm-hmm.
than they are right now, because
Yep.
who's the best pass rusher or defensive end that's over 30 years old right now? And
I have no idea.
Clowney, maybe?
Not even him. I don't think he's that good. And like, you have these TJ Watts and these Bosa guys who are top. They are the top, and like you said, they're mid-20s, maybe getting closer to the late 20s, but they get hurt still, like you said. So could you imagine a 30-plus-year-old defensive end going out there and getting the money that Bosa or TJ Watt are getting? Like, it's tough. It's a tough sell.
There was a podcast that I just recently watched, because the ex Denver Bronco. Do you guys see that football right there? That's the football that the Denver Broncos sent me to my house. That is signed by Derek Wolfe, and I met Derek Wolfe after a Chiefs game. So
nice.
He ended up having to hunt this mountain lion that was eating the neighbors' dogs and shit in Colorado. Dude,
what a monster!
This fucking thing had a head that was this big, dude. His
oh my
was
God.
as big as my whole face. Like
Derek Wolfe?
Massive. No, the mountain lion. So anyway, he was on the Joe Rogan podcast talking about that experience, but then they started talking about football, and he said that when he was playing in the NFL, there were times where he would like get almost like paralyzed from the waist down from getting nerves and shit happening, and he had to microdose mushrooms and took Adderall before like every game, and he was saying like, most players can't talk about this because they have a future with ESPN and shit, so they can't say stuff like that. But he's like not doing that, and he just told them everything. He's like, the medical doctors, they don't care, man. They'll clear you. He's like, I got cleared for being paralyzed from the waist down, basically. And they said, when you turn the lights off on a dungeon, when you turn it on, it takes some time. That's just what your legs are doing. It takes more time to get your feeling back. So they flew him out to the next game.
You're like, come on now.
Yeah. But dude, I think after hearing that podcast, I had a newfound respect for the real, like, we just see injuries. It's just so lightly, sprained ankle, knee sprain, what do you call strained shoulder.
Yeah.
It's like, no, their bodies are falling a fucking apart. You know what I mean? Like, they are in bad shape.
That's what's going to happen, man. And like we said, there is a time, and it's usually after 30, where your body starts to not recover as fast. And believe me, I know. But for these athletes who are at prime, like they're not at their 20s body types, but they're still top tier like athletes. Even they are like feeling it. So does Frank Clark get that kind of money? I don't know. I don't know if he gets top tier money. I'm positive he will sign somewhere though. And he's going to have a big impact on that first year, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, he definitely still has, like, he hasn't hit that wall yet.
Exactly. All right, let's move on. But before we do, here at Only Football, we are brought to you by Star 6 Media. Go follow us on Instagram at Star 6 Media. You can follow our Twitter at _Star 6 Media. And you can follow us not only on Instagram, but YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, and Facebook. Go check out our page, all of our videos, posts, and everything else. And again, if you would like to support Only Football, we have a QR code here at the top left of your screen, right above my... Hold on, there we go. Right above my screen there, where you can donate to me and Kyle, hopefully getting to Super Bowl in Las Vegas. We're not that far away. We can even drive probably. Wouldn't be that far of a drive. We're on the West Coast. Yeah, or we could be a very cheap fly. So if you would like to support us to get to Super Bowl, to get all the best content of next year's Super Bowl, please support us on our QR code.
Frontier has like $49 flights from Seattle to Vegas.
There you go. I mean, I think we've got that already. Well, you know what we should do? We should probably do like one of those like meter things. Like every time we get like 10, 20, 30 bucks, we just kind of fill it in with a marker and we're like, we're almost there at our goal or whatever, something like that. That'd be cool. All right.
And when it gets to the top, it explodes.
You're disgusting. You're disgusting.
What?
Explosions? Come on, like what's wrong with you?
Confetti.
Okay.
No,
all right. Let's get to the next topic. And this one's going to be great for Jags fans. Calvin Ridley has been reinstated from his gambling suspension. He had applied for reinstatement from his indefinite suspension for gambling on February 15th, and he is now eligible to participate in all team activities immediately. And if you guys don't remember, March 7th last year, almost a year to the day really, there was an investigation found that he bet on NFL games over a 5-day stretch in November of 2021. And I think overall he won like $1,500. But either way, you can't bet in the NFL as a player. You just can't do it. Calvin Ridley did it. So there you go. Now the Jaguars did trade for Ridley on November 1st. They sent the Falcons a 2023 fifth-round pick and a conditional fourth-round pick in 2024. That could be as high as a second-round pick. And now Ridley will be paid his guaranteed $11.116 million in 2023 as a fifth-year option from his rookie deal. So, that's his last year on his rookie deal, I believe. So he now joins Trevor Lawrence, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, who the Jaguars actually franchise tagged for this upcoming season. And this is the season after the Jaguars made the playoffs. And we have high hopes for the Jaguars, I think, really, at least, you and I do. And I'm sure Jags fans, after last year and the way Trevor Lawrence kind of took that next step with Doug Peterson as a coach. So what do you think about this Calvin Ridley move? Do you think he makes a huge impact this upcoming season?
Yes, I do. And Calvin Ridley, before he got hurt, I was super high on, and I always said that Calvin Ridley was one of the most pure route runners in the game. And he is a very, 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 very good wide receiver. And
not a good bettor.
Maybe he won 1,500, right?
I mean, yeah. He probably bet like $3K though.
The worst part is like, if he would have lost, he would have also got fined and suspended. So at least he won. It's like a double whammy.
Yeah.
Like there's this stand-up comedian that said, my buddy texted me the other day, and he just said, dude, ... broke up with my girlfriend, punched my friend in the face, and shit my pants. Like, I guess he went out drinking, and then he was like, dude, which one happened first? That's important.
What order?
What order did those things happen? I need to know. So it's like, yeah, at least he didn't, lose his job, lose a bunch of money, and then get banned from the NFL. Yeah, you can't gamble, and it's the rules. And Miles Austin, the ex-Cowboy, had to hire a really powerful lawyer in New York that has, taken clients from like global medals and Olympics, and he does high-profile people because the NFL takes this so serious. And he says he wasn't even gambling on any sport; like he was just using a sports gambling app for something, but. It's just the NFL is trying to crack down on it, and they really had to make an example out of Calvin Ridley because it's the world we live in. And we make examples out of people to try to set a standard and scare people and intimidate people from, getting a thought that it's, worth trying or worth doing.
Exactly.
So I do think that worked. It served its purpose. Like, I don't think anyone wants to lose millions of dollars from being suspended in their prime like Calvin Ridley was. But I also, side note, I don't know how he got caught. Like, just have your brother fucking
That's what I'm saying. Like, how do you, like you said, get somebody else to do it for you? Like, simple.
I just don't get that. It's like, however, I think Calvin Ridley is a dynamic weapon, and the fact that the Jaguars are getting him is just, man, I thought the Jaguars would get better without him next year. Just making these natural progressions as a team. We'll see what they do with Everett, the tight end. I think they need to bring him back. But with Calvin Ridley just jumping onto the field with Trevor Lawrence, and I don't know, man, that might be a team to actually be afraid of around January.
I mean, they won.
I'm saying it. I can't believe
right? Like they won the division. Yeah, it was like the last couple weeks or so that they had to do it, but they won the division. They went into a game against who did they play in the AFC wild card again?
The Chargers.
The Chargers, right? They beat the Chargers. They went to the divisional round. Like this is a team that can go far as long as Trevor Lawrence continues to do as well as he did last year. You add Calvin Ridley to the mix. Like this is one, this is a team with this addition that's going to be good, and that defense is no joke either. So
yeah,
it's going to be interesting.
They're good.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what they do through free agency and the draft. But Calvin Ridley is back.
It's crazy that he got suspended for a whole year. I can't believe that he was gone that long.
Yeah. Steve said 1 week before preseason he gets busted again.
Oh no, I hope not.
That'd be bad. Bill is in the chat. Bill, welcome to the stream. Thanks for coming on. Still logged in at work as usual. Love it. Clocking in the hours. I love it. All right, let's move on to our next topic, and that is Tony Pollard gets franchise tagged by the Cowboys. So the 2023 franchise tender is worth $10 million, which immediately counts against the Cowboys salary cap, whether he signs it immediately or not. And this is after Pollard had a great season in 2022. He had 1,007 yards, a bunch of touchdowns. He looked better than Ezekiel Elliott. So with the Cowboys doing this, franchise tagging Tony Pollard, they couldn't come to an agreement on a multi-year deal. But is it maybe because they want to get rid of Elliott? They're going to get rid of Schultz because he was on the franchise this past season. So Dalton Schultz is basically done as far as like being a Cowboy, unless he probably does a team-friendly deal. But what do you think about this dynamic between Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott? Because Ezekiel Elliott is making, almost $11 million, counts $16.7 million against the cap in 2023, but they can release him and save almost $5 million by releasing Elliott. So what do you think of this dynamic here with Pollard and Elliott?
I think they're trying to keep them together. I think they're trying to, but part of me, I mean, obviously Pollard is the better running back right now, and Ezekiel Elliott is paid the second most of any running back. He makes more per year, but his contract is worth the second most. CMC is worth the most per year. But it's like CMC is so much better than Ezekiel Elliott. You know what I mean? And we talked about this, I think, last week 2 weeks ago maybe 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. I talked about, it was the same week that I talked about, the Chiefs not paying all those guys. Yeah. Because I looked at the fact that Ezekiel Elliott gets paid that much, and I'm like, good franchises don't do that. They don't just
no, not anymore, especially running backs.
Yeah, and I think they just felt like Ezekiel Elliott, when they gave him that deal, Zeke was, he's not even half of what he was as a player. I'm trying to be nice. That sounds mean. But he's not even half of what he was on the field today than he was when that deal got signed. And I don't know if maybe there's not any way that they can opt out, and it's cheaper to just keep him and keep riding with him. Maybe it's like one of those where if you cut him, you'll pay 10, but if you play him, he'll be 13. And you're like, let's just pay him 13. It's not worth it to save $3 million. We cut him and lose 10. So, I think Tony Pollard is going to get tagged for the reason is that after this year, maybe they can get out of that Zeke contract and then make Pollard the guy moving forward. But Pollard, he's got to, wish carefully, because if the Cowboys just learned a valuable lesson about paying a running back with Zeke, don't think that the moment they get out of that toxic relationship, they're not going to want, some me time to. I just need to find out who I am. Sorry, Pollard, I don't want to jump in bed with a 5-year contract right when I finally got Zeke out of the building. So you might have to just get tagged this year, and then I probably see Pollard going elsewhere after the year.
Yeah, and I'm starting to think of what you said. They're trying to keep them together because Zeke can still kind of do. And maybe you shouldn't as a player because you want to look out for yourself too, because the franchises are looking out for themselves. Maybe they want Zeke to do a team-friendly deal to keep them together, to pay both of them, because they know this market in the NFL now is not paying running backs what they paid Zeke or what you're paying other running backs, right? You're not paying running backs anymore. That's just the deal in the NFL. It's sad, but I mean, that's just the market. It is what it is. So why not stay in the Cowboys, continue this success that you've had, try to win a Super Bowl, but get on team-friendly deals, right? Like, this is what the Cowboys and Jerry Jones are trying to preach. So I don't know. Maybe they are trying to keep them together, maybe not. Either way, like you said, I think Pollard is the best running back right now. Moving forward, though, we'll see what happens with both of them, because like you said, if they can't keep Pollard after next year, after the franchise tag, and they get rid of Ezekiel Elliott, now if you're the Cowboys, you're having a running back problem when you had more than enough running backs to go around, right? Like right now.
Yeah. And go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and Bill's saying because quarterbacks cost too much bloody money. And that's true. That's true. But that's the premier position. But what were you going to say, Kyle?
That's also what the upside to signing somebody on a Geno Smith deal or a Daniel Jones deal.
Yep.
Daniel Jones is about to get tagged because they're not going to give him $40 million. But bro, you could keep Saquon if you get tagged. Like it just depends what you're like. If you just want to win, or you just want to win money, you know what I mean? I do think it's that. Like Tom Brady made literally 50% of what Aaron Rodgers made last year. Because to Tom, it's about winning, and to Rodgers, he says it's not about money. But if you're making $50 million a year, what's it about then? You know what I mean?
Right? Like, come on.
It's like, actions speak louder than words. And hey, I got nothing against people that want to make money. Like, you could just be honest about it. So, but the upside is when you don't have to pay, like Bill said, all that freaking money for a quarterback. You can keep these guys around that, give you a better chance of making it to the postseason. And I also think that what's his name? I'm trying to see if I can't find it. I know his last name's Schottenheimer. I think it's Brian Schottenheimer. He's
Brian Schottenheimer?
Is it Schottenheimer?
I don't. Yeah, probably.
Names. Yeah. Welcome to Only Football.
Listen to our intro. We're bad.
Yeah. So if this is it might have been his decision because Kellen Moore just got sent to the Chargers to be their OC, and then this was kind of McCarthy assigned Brian Schottenheimer, and he might have been like, "What do you want?" And I think a lot of the opinion might have been on him, but at the same time, I highly doubt it. I'm taking it all back in real time because Jerry Jones is so controlling that I highly doubt that even Mike McCarthy gets it. He's probably the only one that gets an opinion, and everybody else is just like
a yes man.
A yes man, and that's why they haven't won a Super Bowl in 28 years. Or whatever.
Well, I mean, we'll see what happens, but yeah, for sure. Let's move on to our next one. Our next topic, we got 3 big names on the trading block. One of them not so surprising, Jalen Ramsey. The other ones, Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins, possibly on the trading block here. There has been some rumors about Derrick Henry being on the trading block. They were as early as today. And Henry, 29 years old, and we talked about it earlier with defensive ends, but running backs also run into this, right? 30 is about the time where you start declining. And his yards per game went from 5.4 last season to 4.4 this season. They're also trying to shed some salary just for the cap as well from the Titans. But do you think they can move on from Derrick Henry with a really, really not so good Tannehill and Malik Willis, right? Malik Willis, who did not show much of anything last year when he did start in those games. Can they move on from Derrick Henry, the Titans?
Well, man, so much of this is exciting because these are like big, fun, young names. I mean, Hopkins is a little older. Henry is for a running back, but for the most part, if any of these guys were on your team tomorrow morning, you would do a backflip. So, it's so all right, we'll start with Henry, and the reality is the Titans are between a rock and a hard spot because if they keep Henry, then it's like the only thing that they can do to win football games, right? But you saw last year. Okay, so check it out. This was the recipe for Tennessee: run the ball with Derrick Henry. Once in a while, we'll throw it. Championship, AFC, never to the Super Bowl, but AFC championships, #1 seed 2 years ago. So it was working. And then last year, right, things started falling apart. The GM traded, was it AJ Brown to the Eagles, and then you saw Derrick Henry, the backpack, it got too heavy. Okay, so he was like, okay, so there's his point. Just like we said, the Jenga with Patrick Mahomes, they were playing
trying to take the pieces out.
They were doing that with Derrick Henry, and the whole tower fell down last season. They missed the playoffs. So now they have this new realization that in our state, Derrick Henry, he might win us. He might be the difference between like 3-4 football game wins, but he is not going to take us to a Super Bowl. So what are we doing here if we're not going to win the Super Bowl? So what you do is you take your most valuable asset and you start rebuilding. And this is, people don't like to call it rebuilding. They like to call it reloading. And I think it's bullshit. But for the Titans, I'll say reloading is okay. Yeah. Because they were right there on the edge of making the playoffs on week 17. So, but I do think you have to do that. And it's another thing, I feel the same way about all these people, is if you have a guy on your team that is being paid in his position group at the top 3 in the NFL and you are not in the playoffs, why is he being paid that much money? You don't have the luxury to do that. When the Rams signed Jalen Ramsey on that $100 million deal, it was they could do that because they had the money and they were winning. So it's like, let's get a guy to take us on top. But if you're losing a lot of football games and you're only winning 30% of your games, you literally can't afford to have that. It's like no different in real life. If you don't make a lot, you see the Corvette that's parked in the trailer park. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like you can't have that Corvette, but you could sell the Corvette and you could get a nice 1-bedroom place and get furniture and you could I mean, it's not a mansion, but it's a place that you could live in and survive. And I think the Titans and the Rams,
I love that analogy,
and the Arizona Cardinals have all found themselves this offseason in a position where they have really fancy toys in their parking lot that they don't deserve to have at this point. So they're just trying to get rid of those, and it makes sense.
And now with Jalen Ramsey, right? Like he's in that Rams team that is definitely trying to shed as much salary as possible. Now he is still 28 years old. He had 4 interceptions this past season, tied a career high. He sent some cryptic messages out. Like he's he's kind of checked out too. So what do you think? Where do you think he ends up? Does Ramsey end up like on a competing team? Does he end up like on a I don't know, like a Carolina Panthers type of team where they're not really there, but they're kind of getting there? He's 28 years old for cornerback, still not bad.
Yeah, no, not at all. Especially arguably the best in the league. I thought, man, how crazy would it be if we had Jalen Ramsey and Patrick Surtain?
Hey, Denver Broncos. Hey, that's not a bad combo. That's
why I was cheesing so hard because even though I made it short on this topic, it never occurred to me that how fucking crazy it would be to have Jalen Ramsey and Patrick Surtain. So I think that whether it's Denver or it's the Jets or it's Green Bay, I think it has to be a team that's competing. Because if you remember when Jalen Ramsey left Jacksonville, it was because he wanted to win. And he said that from the coaching staff down, these are not winners, and I'm a winner. All I did at Florida State was win, and I come here and we don't win. I want to go win. Then he went somewhere else and he won, and then he won the Super Bowl. And I just feel like for Jalen Ramsey, he's not going to go play for Carolina. He's not going to go play. I mean, unless you're a team that has a lot of upside, maybe Chicago because he likes Justin Fields. Yeah. A new buzz, right? A new team that has a lot of buzz, like maybe even back to Jacksonville makes a lot of sense, to be honest.
A little homecoming,
A little homecoming back to Florida. He went to Florida State. Jacksonville is only 3.5 hours from Tallahassee. Like a lot of that makes sense. But I mean, there's going to be a lot of people on the phone for this, but it just depends what they want. I mean, do they just want, because whoever, this is like contract detail, whoever does get the trade with Jalen Ramsey, they are on the hook for 1 year of his contract. It's already paid for.
Yeah.
For the Rams. So they're on the hook for that year. And then after going into 2024, that team would have to, sign him to a very hefty deal. So it's just going to depend on what teams are going to have the salary cap available in 2024 to make that commitment to him. Because if it's a 1 year stint, I don't think Ramsey's interested.
And it's interesting that you said the Jaguars because that defense is good. And you add Jalen Ramsey and you're getting to that great defense category, right? Like depending on what the offseason moves are with the defense for the Jaguars. But it would be interesting to see him in Denver. It would be interesting to see him even in like, I don't know, like you said, an up-and-coming team like the Saints. They have a solid defense like we talked about earlier. The Bears, maybe, I don't know. I feel like we do need someone like that as far as like more veteran leadership on the defense. I don't know if I'd like Ramsey on the Bears. I'll be honest. Like, I don't know. I don't know. But it's going to be very interesting.
I don't
like Denver,
I don't like his demeanor.
Yeah, like, there's something about him.
Is such a humble, quiet guy, and sometimes he doesn't get the recognition. But he finally got past that this year. Remember in the offseason, I was like, he was snubbed from the top 100, and I was like, he's going to make the biggest jump of any player on that list this year. Well, it hasn't come out yet. But I bet you when that top 100 comes out, he'll be in the 30 range.
Oh, okay. All right. I like that. I could buy that.
He's really freaking good. And then Jalen Ramsey's so loud and arrogant, and it just depends. Like, if that doesn't fit our team, like we have Russell Wilson, but maybe that's what we need.
Maybe that is what you need. You had Richard Sherman. Russ Wilson had Richard Sherman on the Seahawks.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they still won a Super Bowl. Like maybe that is what you need. Maybe you need that guy in the defense who is gonna be like, let's be fucking better. Brings the attitude. Yeah.
Yeah, because Justin Simmons is super quiet. I mean, these are really great players, but they're very quiet. You know what I mean? Like, they're not like showboater. I mean, when they get the pick, they go at the touchdown, they run down and celebrate together. But for the most part, we don't have a Jalen Ramsey. We don't have a Richard Sherman. We don't have a Ray Lewis. Brian Dawkins. Maybe that's what freaking some fire is what we need on that.
That's what I'm saying. So we'll see what happens with Jalen Ramsey. It would be interesting to see where he ends up, whether it's on a competing team or maybe like an up-and-coming team. But let's move over to DeAndre Hopkins. Bill's asking, isn't he a cap casualty? I think so, but he's on the trading block. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure why. He missed 7 games last year. But he still had 717 yards, 3 touchdowns in 9 games after 64 receptions. So I'm not entirely sure why he is on the trading block. But Bill could be making a great point. Cap casualty. Maybe they are trying to shed some cap. Obviously, they gave the quarterback guy. Why can't I think of his name? It's so bad. I'm so bad at this. They give him the extension, all that money. They're kind of building as well. Kyler Murray, that's who it is. Kyler Murray. Yeah. Kyler Murray. I was like, it's a K. Why can't I think of a K? Kyle?
Whenever you can't remember something happens to me. I don't know what it is.
Thank you, Bill. Kyler Murray. But yeah, I don't know why he's necessarily on the trading block. But I can't see. Maybe it's because I can't see the Cardinals in the playoffs next year either. Kyle, do you like? What do you think about D-Hop being on the trading block? Is this going to be something where we don't see him on the Cardinals next year?
Yeah, we're not going to see him on the Cardinals. He costs he costs a lot of money, and the Cardinals are actually in rebuild. There's no reloading going on over there. They lost their coordinators. They got a whole new staff in. The only thing they have is Kyler Murray, which did you see the first time the head coach actually met Kyler Murray in the facility?
Who was it? Who's their head coach now? The offensive guy from the Eagles, right?
Yeah, he came in and he was like, you ready? And then Kyler Murray was just like, and they kind of dabbed up, but Kyler Murray looks like chunky, man. Like, he didn't look like he's in football shape, but he is in the weight room. So I'm going to reserve all of that. So
True.
I think they're in a rebuild, and having DeAndre Hopkins is not the move right now. The move is to trade DeAndre Hopkins trade him. If Aaron Rodgers stays, trade him to Green Bay.
Ooh, that would be nice. That would be nice. And Steve said it. Cardinals are going to be scary bad next season. I 100% agree.
I don't think they're going to be great. It's a bad situation, and the only thing you can do is get rid of just be thankful you have a DeAndre Hopkins that it's like when you're broke, but then you have like some assets, and you're like, well, at least I'll always have the car.
At least I got that.
Yeah. DeAndre Hopkins is your car, and
he really is.
Yeah, and that's gonna have to go to a new home for sure.
And Bill did the homework for us. Hopkins will carry a cap hit of $30.75 million next year in 2023 and $26.215 million in 2024. So yeah, this is definitely a cap casualty that they're trying to get rid of because they're gonna need that money badly if they want to, surround Kyler with some weapons and revamp that defense. But we'll see where he ends up. Like Kyle said, would he end up in Green Bay if Aaron Rodgers does come back to Green Bay and does that deal that he did with the Packers last offseason? That'd be interesting. That wouldn't be bad because if Aaron Rodgers lost Devontae Adams, you've got the other guy who just came up and is looking good, Watson, for the Packers. You bring in a DeAndre Hopkins, you bring in that veteran presence, and Aaron Rodgers can't complain anymore that they're not giving him any sort of weapons there in Green Bay. Which why not? Why not give him DeAndre Hopkins? Let's move on to the next topic here, and that is Deshaun Watson open to restructuring his contract. Now, the Browns gave Deshaun Watson one of the most needle-moving contracts last year as far as the quarterbacks go. Destroyed the market. Yeah, honestly, though. $230 million guaranteed over 5 years, but he's open to restructuring his deal so Cleveland can get under the salary cap number. Watson's cap hit for 2023 is almost $55 million. Almost $55 million. Can you believe that? And he needs weapons, man. Not Jarvis Landry. Who does he have over there? The guy from the Cowboys.
Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper. He's got him. He's got Njoku. He's got a couple weapons there, and they're going to keep the running back. I forget his name. Nick Chubb. We don't do names here on Only Football.
Kareem Hunt.
Kareem Hunt, I think, is going to be a free agent too. So he's up to restructure it. What do you think of that? Do you think it's a good move for, I don't know, both parties to do it? Because he's going to get the money regardless. But you think the Browns are going to end up doing this?
Well, just from being a guy that is in a situation where I wish my quarterback would restructure, I'll just say that yes, I think this is a good move. Yeah, because look, all of the off-field shit that happened, right? All of the terrible things, and then somehow a team just looked past it all and signed him and then gave him a bonus. It's like it was actually kind of weird. And then you look at how he's performing, right? Mm-hmm. So just the sole fact of costing $55 million, I know this. Mm-hmm. I am a Broncos fan. People will not like you because if you're not winning all of your games, why are we paying him $55 million, right? So, look, you have all that off-field stuff. The second worst thing you could do now is be the most expensive guy that is losing. Mm-hmm. Especially at the quarterback position. So I do feel like in order for, if the goal for Watson is to try to, savage his name, at least maybe not he'll ever get to do that with the NFL brand as a whole, but just with the Cleveland fans, right? Mm-hmm. If he wants them to at least, he has one place he can call home that people, only 80% of the people hate him instead of 100. Then I think that this is what he has to do is
Yeah.
restructure this contract, and then they'll be like, "Oh, he's a team guy,"
Yes, exactly.
and then all of a sudden it's like, it's just people start being a little more lenient on that stuff when you're. I mean, I don't know. Some people might not, but I would imagine that it would make life a lot easier for Deshaun Watson if he would restructure his contract.
Especially after all that happened, over the last couple seasons. So I think it's a good move again. PR wise, yes, absolutely. And then for the Cleveland Browns too, obviously this would be a very good decision to make because you want to either pay guys or bring in guys to be competitive in that AFC North. Because you still have to deal with the Ravens, and depending on the whole Lamar Jackson thing, what happens there, you have to be competitive. You can take advantage of that. Is Kenny Pickett the guy in Pittsburgh? He showed he showed that he was pretty damn good last year as a rookie. So is he that guy? Will he take that second-year jump? We'll see. And then the Bengals, they're you can't fuck with the Bengals, but you can at least try to take advantage of the Ravens and Pittsburgh situation where you might not beat Joe Burrow and the Bengals twice a year, even though I think they have a pretty good record against them. But you can try to get second in the wild card, something like that, right? So I think they have to take advantage of anything they can.
Yeah, and also with the last segment about Ramsey, I think it's possible that they're going to sit down with Joe Burrow, and there's going to be a day that it's just going to feel like a regular Tuesday, and we're going to see Joe Burrow signed a $300 million deal, right? And I do think when those conversations happen this offseason, that it'll be possible that they will say, hey, if we can give you, fully guaranteed this year and move a lot of that now down where we don't have to come out of pocket till 2 years from now, we can bring in like Jalen Ramsey. Are you comfortable with that? And I do think that they just need one more piece on defense. So definitely look out for his contract to leave some room open for a Jalen Ramsey. And that would take the Bengals way over the top. I mean, I don't even think that'd be insane to win the Super Bowl. Yeah,
that would be insane for the Bengals to do that. All right, let's move on to our last segment here, and it's just some quick NFL Combine notes. Some things have happened. Kyle has made a couple of very good shorts, but let's talk a little bit about what happened over the Combine. Probably one of the biggest things, well, maybe two of the biggest things. One, Anthony Richards. What he did at the Combine was pretty special. This guy's 6'4", 244 pounds. He set the record for quarterbacks with a vertical jump, 40.5 inches, and a broad jump of 10 feet, 9 inches. Then he did an official clocking of 4.43 seconds on the 40-yard dash. It was impressive what he did, and this is only after one full season in Florida, where he had about 2,500 yards, 17 touchdowns, 654 rushing yards, and 9 rushing scores. What did you think of Anthony Richardson's Combine, Kyle?
I thought it was everything and more that you could ask for. I mean, I loved the. Did you see the breakdown of the? I'm trying to see, where did I put it? It was the breakdown of everything in every category: the broad jump, the vertical jump, so. Did you see he's taller than George Kittle? He's heavier than Hassan Reddick. His hands are bigger than DeAndre Hopkins. His vertical is higher than Devontae Adams. His broad jump is longer than Odell Beckham Jr. So I see these types of comparisons almost every year where a defensive lineman's like, for 380 pounds, but he's faster than, let's say, Bobby Wagner or something.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not usually at the quarterback position that a guy is all of these things. So this does make it very interesting. Not only that, Anthony Richardson is a very confident young man, and I sound so old. He's a very confident young man. He apparently, one of the things that people aren't really talking about is all the GMs have, they get together and have dinner and they're like, what'd you think of your interview? They talk, and it's like the combine is like the spring break for the NFL. They all just get together and it's a big party. So apparently though, amongst all the tables that have had these conversations, Anthony Richardson is the name that people are saying blew them away in the interview process. Which shows a lot of maturity. To be a great interviewer, you have to have some sort of IQ. I remember the moment Jerry Jeudy got drafted and he went on, and I was like, damn, like he sounds like he has a 5th grade education, no cap. So I'm not even kidding.
No cap.
So I was like, man, a lot of these teams really like that about Anthony Richardson. Quarterback, you want to have a quarterback that is really intelligent with reading defenses and everything that comes with it. So I thought, and I made that short, and people were like, don't buy into the hype, They were like that about Malik Willis. And I said, I'm not buying into the hype. All I'm saying is if he can get his football IQ, reading defenses, picking up blitzes, etc., if he can get that stuff up to where his athleticism is, he could be extremely dangerous in the NFL.
Yes.
And I do think there is a point where you are just based on athletic skills, like you are worth considering just because you're a freak athlete. So there are just freak athletes, and a lot of them get drafted very high, like Jadeveon Clowney did. And sometimes it works out, and sometimes they never really get that IQ part to get up to where their athleticism is. But he's definitely, just based on the combine, earned himself a higher draft position and a chance to start for an NFL team. So congratulations to Anthony Richardson. And we talked about this last week with the Bryce Young thing. It was like, it's not Bryce Young not throwing that's the problem. It's what happens while he's at home. That's the problem. And not only that, but CJ Stroud, we'll get to that. He had a day. So
yeah. Like you said, sometimes it works out. Sometimes you just turn out to be Zach Wilson. So hopefully Anthony Richardson can elevate that part. There was a story when he was kind of sitting there in the combine, like getting ready for workouts or whatever. Someone came up to him and was like, hey, what position do you play? And Anthony Richardson replies like, which position do you think I play? And he's like, linebacker. And he's like, laughed. He's like, no, I'm a quarterback. He's like, what? You're a quarterback? This guy's 6'4", 245 pounds. This is reminiscent of a Cam Newton type of quarterback. And like you said,
Cam Jackson. That's what he called himself in high school.
Oh, like Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton
together.
Yeah. See, there you go, man. Like this guy, like you said, if he can become the quarterback, like get the quarterback IQ part down, he's going to be a problem in the NFL. Now, there was a lot of hype around him as of recently over the last month, but I think that was more about Bryce Young and like, oh man, Bryce Young is tiny, and he measured in at the combine at 5'10" and 1/8. So 204. So everyone kind of like talking about whether or not he's going to be the quarterback size, the size you want him to be, over 200 pounds. Like that was a huge topic of conversation for Bryce Young.
Well, it didn't help.
No, and it didn't help. But I mean, you look at like when we talk about guys like that are a little smaller, that don't weigh as much, then you could be like, well, what about Russ Wilson? What about Drew Brees? What about Kyler Murray? Then you're like, oh, now I can make the comparison, right? Like these guys, small guys, they're not the biggest guys out there, but they are very relevant in the league to this day, right? Like what did Russ Wilson get? 230 million, whatever it was. So they're making money and they make plays. That was probably one of the other big topics, but another one was, like you mentioned, CJ Stroud. Nearly perfect from what combine scouts were saying. He made a huge spectacle because like his athleticism, his arm, big arms, just slinging the football. His natural arm talent is quoted as being his forte. And in Ohio State, 70% of his throws were completed, 8,100 yards, 85 touchdowns, and just 12 interceptions. Led the Buckeyes to a 22-4 record. He was back-to-back Heisman Trophy finalist and two-time Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year. CJ Stroud is one of those guys that is a quarterback. and will be a quarterback, in the NFL. And there's really no question about that coming into the combine back when he was still playing for Ohio State. So I don't know. I think CJ Stroud goes number 1 overall over Bryce Young in the draft.
I agree. And man, it's weird because you mentioned Russell Wilson and Bryce Young, and it's like, but when they stand next to each other, even though they're apparently the same height and weight, why does Bryce Young look like so much smaller? It doesn't make sense to me.
He's like 200 pounds, yeah.
Yeah, he's 206 pounds, Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
And how much did he weigh in at? 204?
204.
Well, they look way different, and apparently they're the same freaking height.
Is Russell Wilson 206? I think Russell Wilson's getting a little thick like there.
220. Yeah, I thought he's a little thick with 2 Qs, but
I gotta.
No, when
he's 206. You're right.
Yeah, so I think the Bryce Young thing, I don't know if it's so much a height weight thing, but it's an eyeball thing. Like, there were people that were at the combine saying, like, when Bryce Young was walking next to like defensive players, they said he looked like their little brother. You know what I mean? Like, it was like that noticeable. Where if he were to throw on just like a combine staff shirt, people would just think he's working there. No one would be like, "You're an NFL player." If CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson did that, they'd be like, "What are you doing?
What are you doing? Get that off! Stop fucking around."
Go change out. You're running.
Yeah.
But CJ Stroud, man, if you watched him throw the ball, he was such a pure thrower of the football. His footwork was impeccable. He threw the ball. He threw outs. He threw short routes. He threw posts. He threw corners. He threw the touchdown corner one that requires loft and touch, so it comes down. He threw those balls perfectly, and then he wrapped it up with throwing like 4 60-yard passes that landed in the breadbasket like every time. So I thought, they said you couldn't have scripted a better day for CJ Stroud. That's how good he did. Yeah. So I just think if you like, there's upside with Bryce Young, but there's upside with CJ Stroud. So really, if I'm an owner, I'm just gonna ask myself, who is the biggest risk? It's Bryce Young. It's Bryce Young. So because of that, I would going to draft CJ Stroud. And on top of that, this is going to sound weird, and I've been thinking about this. I haven't heard this anywhere, but I do think Justin Fields' success in Chicago is elevating the credibility of Ohio State quarterbacks. Because it's always been an Ohio State quarterback can't measure up to the NFL. And then you have the success Justin Fields had last year. I do think that's going to affect C.J. Stroud and the way he's looked at from around the league.
For sure.
If I had the first overall pick and I was the Texans and not the Bears, I would take C.J. Stroud over Bryce Young. And it'll be interesting to see if Bryce Young goes. Do you think he has to go too, just because the hype has been so high on him? Yeah,
and that's kind of why. Like, I think C.J. Stroud throwing and proving and just doing what he did at the combine is going to get him up there to number 1. We'll see what Bryce Young does at his pro day, his own personal pro day. But I think Bryce Young is definitely going to go 2, if not 1. I still think C.J. Stroud is going to go 1 to the Texans after the Bears, trade back multiple times and whatnot. But I think the Texans are going to go with the size C.J. Stroud has. The great pro day that he had, because why not? Like you said, who runs the bigger risk for you, Stroud or Bryce Young? At this point, it's Young. Again, we have yet to see his pro day, and when we do, we'll probably be, GMs and analysts and everybody, people like us, will be able to make our judgments on that. But right now, I think you go C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson. Like we said, impressed. I didn't really hear too much about Will Levis, but I'm sure he did perfectly fine. But C.J. Stroud right now and Anthony Richardson are like the guys to go.
And just last week on Only Football, you said Bryce Young you would take number 1.
Did I?
Yeah, because that's what sparked our whole debate. So, well, if you didn't, then I might have to go see somebody, because
we'll double check. Anybody who listens has to double check us right now.
Okay, so if I'm not even gonna go there if you didn't say it, but if you did say it, I was gonna say that just shows you though how important it is to throw, because even if Bryce Young goes,
I said I think it's smart for Bryce Young to do his own pro day and not throw at the combine. That's what we said. I think that's what we were talking about.
I think I asked you straight up, who are you taking number 1, and you said Bryce.
Oh, okay. I can't remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. We're old, it's like I watch old episodes sometimes just to like see something new. I'm like, I've never seen this before. So that was my whole point, was like, if Bryce Young goes to his pro day, and like you said, we get to be GMs and analyze that, and let's say he does a really great job. Let's say he does just as good as CJ Stroud. Who are you more impressed by? The guy that played with people he didn't ever know and had to adjust in real time to their speed and their height and things like that? Or Bryce Young, who was throwing to, his homies that he's been thrown to for the last 3 years? I mean, I just still think CJ Stroud, because of, the circumstances, is going to get more credibility for his performance.
Yeah, and I would probably lean again towards Stroud because, again, right, like Bryce Young probably had to go through leaps and bounds to get to 204, right? Because this guy's lanky, right? Like, this guy had to probably be eating 10,000 calories a day. Yeah, peanut butter, meat, just everything, right? So I would give it to CJ Stroud just because, like, he had an impressive pro day at the combine, and he's got the size. He's got the size, what you would expect a quarterback to do. And I think that's a huge debate. And while I don't think it's the height and the weight is necessarily what makes a good quarterback, because we've seen plenty of quarterbacks just fail. But I think CJ Stroud is, like you said, shedding that Ohio State BS of like, you guys can't, perform in the league. I don't know, man. I'm taking CJ Stroud.
Yeah, it's a stereotype. Well, and the funny little segue before we wrap it up. I just went to this about Bryce Young gaining weight. I just went to like a nutrition store, and I told them, I was like, man, I've always been like a really lean person. It's hard for me to gain weight. Yeah. And I was like, lately, I just see these rolls like in my stomach, and I'm like, I sit down and I'm like, who is that looking back at me? You know what I mean? And I'm like, what is going on?
Feel that?
Like, I'm going to the gym. I'm swimming. And she goes, show me your protein. And I showed it to her, and she goes, yeah, you've been drinking a mass gainer every day, and because of my bad leg injury, I can't run. And she's like, oh yeah, you need to burn like 4,000 calories a day if you're gonna take that. And I cut that out like 2 weeks ago and just started slimming right back down. And I was like, oh my god, you're like,
what the fuck? You're like that scene in Mean Girls. Remember when she's like eating the protein bars or whatever, and she thinks they're diet bars? Like, it's so funny.
That's such a great comparison. Yeah. I was just like, why am I getting fat? This is supposed to be protein.
All right, and then the last little note here on the combine, we had edge rushers showing out. Nolan Smith, Will Anderson Jr., and Adetomiwa Adebowale all had great showings. I tried. Hopefully I got it wrong. Hopefully I didn't butcher that. Adebowale, though, is from Northwestern, so, kind of, local kid for me growing up in Chicago, so that's pretty cool. Will Anderson Jr. hopefully is someone that the Bears will get in the draft, but Anderson, he had the 40. He finished with a 4.6 40, 253 pounds. Not a bad 40. Adebowale had the best 40 at a 4.49, and then Smith had a 4.44. I think that was unofficial 40, so I think still Adebowale had the best 40, because I think that one by Nolan Smith was a 4.44, was unofficial. But either way, these defensive ends, or these edge rushers, man, they're looking faster, they're looking bigger. Like, I don't know what's been happening over the years, but I hope the Bears get Will Anderson Jr., because these guys are monsters.
Yeah, no, you're right, and that's the cool thing about having the number 1 pick, is there's always just one defensive guy that's just a total beast. That like the Jadeveon Clowney, the Myles Garrett, the Nick Bosa. There's always one, just a total just guy that's different than the rest of everybody. And it looks like you're going to be the team that gets him, even if you move down. So that's pretty cool.
Honestly, yeah.
I would be happy. I would go buy a jersey.
That's what it's so funny because like I've thought about it because when we got Justin Fields, I'm like, I'm getting a Justin Fields jersey off the bat, and I was like, no, wait, because this always happens. My wife got me a Khalil Mack jersey. What happens the next year? He's gone off the team. I was like, motherfucker. But you know, it always happens, and I'm like, let me give it a couple years for Justin Fields to really establish himself as a quarterback. So I'm gonna wait on Will Anderson Jr. But I think if all goes well, the trading back goes well. If we can get Will Anderson Jr., that guy's gonna be a menace on the Bears, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, he's gonna stuff the run. How were you guys on run defense last year?
We were not good. We were not good on defense at all.
Perfect.
Exactly. All right. Well, that is the show. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Almost 2 hours here on Only Football with me and Kyle. Big shout out to Bill, Steve, Jinja. We had Eric, newcomer, Kalongo, 27, newcomer, and Liam at the very beginning. Thank you guys for not only, you know, checking us out here on the stream, commenting, but supporting us. Again, we have our little support box, our little QR code, and the link is in the comments somewhere. But thank you guys for supporting us on our journey to Super Bowl in Vegas. 58.
58. The Bills are going. Von Miller, 58.
Oh shit! Kyle's gonna see Von Miller one more time.
Oh my god.
Other than that, you can follow us on Instagram at Star6 Media, not only Instagram, but YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, and Facebook, and at _Star6 Media on Twitter. Kyle, where can they find you on Twitter?
You can find me at FTBLONLYPODCAST, Football Only Podcast, and lately I've been uploading all of the YouTube shorts that are created onto the Facebook or onto the Twitter. And hopefully bringing in a different, what do you call that? A different
followers.
A different. There's a word.
Vibe.
Nope. It's like a fuck it. I'm done.
You can follow me on Twitter at @andnowrick. See me tweet about the Bears, everything Chicago, and football news related. Like I said, you know, you can follow us on all those on all of our socials, and Star6 Media has a bunch of other shows you can go check out: EAFP, JCA Sports, 3 Up 3 Down, the Main Event, and Slot Shot, as well as Only Football. So go check out all those other shows, and again, you know, hit the little QR code in the top left of your screen to support Kyle and I's trip to Las Vegas for the Super Bowl next year to get you guys a bunch of great content. Kyle, hit us with the chives. What are the chives?
The chives are, I hope you guys enjoyed this because we just flipped it, right? So Monday turned into Thursday, and Thursday turned into Monday.
Oh, that's right. I forgot to mention that, yeah.
And boy, was that clutch for today. You know what I mean? It'd been hard to be like, who got 2 blocked field goals in 1998 when all this shit went down? Be like, oh.
I know. Yeah, for real. This was like the best day to do this.
Yeah, so the chives are going to be to check out any news that happens between now and trivia will be posted on Only Football with Kyle, which is not a live stream, but it's something that's recorded and posted. And that's kind of covering the news that will happen tomorrow and the next day. And then Thursday, check out our trivia. If you're new to this channel, trivia is a freaking blast. You actually learn more about football, and at the same time, you get to be competitive, and it's fun for everybody involved. And you get to win something. Rick had really cool 1994 Sports Illustrated magazines, and I just like the way they sound. ASMR, is that what it is? I like it. Anyway, sorry, we'll do that later. Definitely join us Thursday for trivia.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. We always have to do Q&A at the end of it. So, you know, any questions on the news that happens between then and here today and then, you can definitely ask us, and we will give you our unfiltered opinion. Demographic. New demographic. Yeah, demographics. But all right, Kyle, always a pleasure. I will see you for trivia on Thursday, dude.
All right, y'all. See ya.
See ya.